There are few people entering, so we'll just. So in this session, we thought it would be good to also look at how mycetoma diagnosis is integrated or harmonized. So Dr. Wendy von der Sand will do her talk on development of a real-time mycetoma recombinase polymerase amplification reaction to identify the most common causative agents of mycetoma in Africa. And then after that, we'll have the general discussions and then carry on from there. So Wendy, you're very welcome, and I hope your slides are ready.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to present today after the other diseases. So this presentation will be a little bit different, but a little bit the same too. So it's the development of a point-of-care diagnostic test for mycetoma in Africa, and some of the work was sponsored by DIRFT. So in this audience, probably everyone knows what mycetoma is. It's a chronic granulomatous disease, and it can be caused by either fungi or bacteria. And at the moment, there are more than 80 different causative agents. So you can imagine to have one PCR assay to identify them all. At the moment, it's technically very, very challenging, to say at least. So we therefore focused on two countries, one in Western Africa, Senegal, and one in Eastern Africa, Sudan, and looked at the historical data on the etiology. And there you can see that actinomycetoma was mainly caused by Actinomadura maduriae, and that was found in both countries. Actinomadura pelletri was more common in Senegal, and Streptomyces somaliensis was a little bit more common in Sudan. Then we have eumycetoma, and based on historical records, in Sudan the predominant causative agent is Margella mycetomatis, but in Senegal a little bit more diversity was seen, and historically we would have expected Margella mycetomatis and Falciforme spora senegalensis to be the most prevalent. So for now we decided to focus on these causative agents first, because they are simply the most prevalent. So traditionally, the diagnosis is done clinically, as you can see over here. Then a surgical biopsy is taken to obtain the grains where the organism can be found. Histology is done in most of the labs, and culture too. And based on the culture characteristics, the identification is made. In countries like Sudan, they also can use ultrasound to differentiate between actinomycetoma and eumycetoma. And that's very fast. If you can see, the time is indicated in hours, so it only takes roughly 10 minutes. However, histopathology and culture take a median of 8.5 days and 21 days. And the problem is that the misidentifications occur commonly. Even the British and the French reference collections, if you look at black grain mycetoma, 70% was misidentified based on culture only, and they only found out after ITS sequencing. So there's really a need to improve the diagnosis. So our aim was to develop a sort of point-of-care RPA assay able to identify the causative agents and determine the susceptibility or resistance to standard therapies for mycetoma. Today I will focus only on the identification. And I will explain what an RPA is, but the workflow is simple. We obtain a sample from the patient, isolate the DNA, and do an isothermal real-time reaction, as you can see over here. And you can follow the curve in a machine, or you could use a LED light to see if it's positive or negative. So the first thing we need to do is to get the sample. And as I mentioned, a deep-seated biopsy is the preferred method. So in the Mycetoma Research Center, Emmanuel Siddick compared if fine needle aspiration, ultrasound guided, would be equally sensitive to obtain some grains. So he took 34 patients, 3 which were negative regardless which method he used, and 31 were positive. And as you can see with ultrasound-guided fine needle aspiration, we only missed 1. So this might be a less invasive alternative, but of course it's only 30 patients, so we need to scale up this to see if it will hold. The second requirement is DNA, and we can isolate DNA quite easily from the isolates grown. But to get isolates from a biofilm-like structure like the grain, which is very difficult to destroy, that's a different procedure. So we started with standard techniques. So for fungal DNA isolation, the CTAP method is still the old-fashioned golden standard. So we tried that, but no DNA from the grains. Then we used the ZR fungal bacterial DNA mini prep kit, which has bashing beads inside, to see if that would work. No amplifiable DNA. And then we thought, well, maybe those bashing beads are not hard enough. So let's replace them with metal beads. We did this first with the QIAGEN kit, and we got amplifiable DNA in most of the cases, but not all. But when we used the ZR fungal DNA mini prep with the metal beads, then in all cases we got amplifiable DNA. So that became a golden standard for DNA isolation from grains. But you need a lot of techniques for this. You need a bead beater, you need the fungal prep, you need a centrifuge, you need an incubator. So that's not very field friendly. And then the new project from the ALM and ANSVAT came along, which introduced also the BioMim kit, the Expedite kit, and we tried old-fashioned boiling. And these are the results I'm going to present now. So we started with classical PCR because that's most commonly used in the Mycetoma Research Center, and also we use it still quite a lot. So we started by strains, as you can see here. These are fungal strains, so we thought we'd start with the fungus because that one has the most difficult to penetrate cell wall. So we did the Expedite kit, and we see that we have amplifiable DNA, although with one sample the band was very faint. Then we did the BioMem, same result. Also the 31 isolate was a little bit more difficult. With boiling, it also worked with the strain, so that's a plus. And the negative control was negative, and the positive control was the Zymo kit, and that worked too. With the Expedite kit, there's only one but. And that will appear when we talk about the grains. So then we did the same for the grains, and I wouldn't expect this to work without beating actually. But we tried anyway. And as you can see, very faint bands with the Expedite, but we did get amplifiable DNA. With BioMem, we got very thick bands, so it did work with the grains. Boiling didn't work. But as I mentioned, there's one but with Expedite. It only worked when we diluted the sample. So the undiluted sample had too many inhibitory constituents, so we couldn't amplify it. We could amplify it when we diluted 1 in 100. One of the reasons probably behind this is that the grain is very black, and phenolic compounds probably are isolated together, and it's not diluted enough with the normal Expedite kit. Because the Expedite kit is a reverse DNA isolation. So you take away the impurities, but apparently the melanin of the fungus was not taken away very efficiently. So the third method was the amplification method. And since this was part of the Dioraphety method, we decided to go for RPA, which is an isothermal amplification reaction, which you can do at 37 degrees, so you don't need a thermocycler. It almost works the same as PCR. So you do have 2 primers, and not 6 like what you have with LAMP. But instead of the normal Taq polymerases, you use a recombinase. And that binds to the primer, which then looks for your homologous sequence and displaces the strands, and the polymerases can amplify. So it's not a thermal, it's not a cycle, it's a continuous reaction. And to detect multiple species in one reaction, you can use a probe, which is an exoprobe, and which can cleave over here to release the quencher from the fluorophore. And it works with the nuclease, so that's a little bit different than the classical TaqMan. So then we needed to look for the amplification target. And again, I focus on the fungus. So for the fungus, the barcoding region is the internally transcribed spacer region. And there are 2 regions. This is ITS region 1, ITS region 2. And because the size needs to be small, like in a real-time PCR, we chose this region. So we chose our reverse priver over here, forward priver over here, and 2 specific probes. So this one is a classical amplification curve, which you would get with this, and this was the probe. And this was when you do this with a lot of other strains. And this was with the Zymo kit. However, if we play a little bit around with the different isolation methods, you see with Zymo we get a very quick reaction. Remember, it's not a cycle, although the machine states cycles, it's minutes. Because it's not a cycling, it's a constant temperature. And to overcome this problem, we just made artificial cycles of 37 degrees for 1 minute. So then we know that after 5 to 7 minutes, we get a positive result with Zymo. With Swift, it was a little bit higher. And with BioMem, we didn't get amplification with the RPA, unfortunately. And with the grains, we could also get amplification. The strange thing here was that with normal PCR, we had to dilute to get an amplification signal. With RPA, we didn't have to dilute, and even if we diluted, then we couldn't get a signal. So there's a little bit difference here in how the reaction works. So if we look at the DNA isolation and make a summary, with normal PCR, Zymo worked, and the Swift 1 in 100 dilution worked, and the BioMem worked. For RPA, the undiluted Swift worked, and this is the same between strains and grains. For the real-time PCR, we do know that it works with the Zymo kit, but we still need to try it with the other dilutions, because these results were actually from last week, so they're very fresh from the press. So what's next? Well, we try, of course, the real-time PCR, but we also need to look at actinomycetoma. And we are going to develop the RPA for the bacteria. And we looked at heat shock protein 65, which is one of the barcoding genes for that. But there, with the requirements of an RPA probe, we can only design a genus-specific PCR. And we wanted to make it species-specific. So here you can see the design of the genus-specific probes. And we did have amplification with the primer, so we ordered the probes. And we did a comparative genomics approach, as you can see over here, to find more suitable targets so that we can also make a species-specific RPA. And after that, we will clinically validate at the Mycetoma Research Center and at the University Gaston Berger in Senegal to see if this will also work in a clinical setting. So, conclusions. PCR can be done on grains obtained via fine needle aspiration. DNA can be directly isolated from grains, also with biomem and expedite assays. Mozzarella mystomatis and falciformis sporus senegalensis RPA works well with DNA isolated with the Zymo kit. And the actinomycetoma RPA we still need to develop further. And the clinical validation will be done in the next year. And with this, I would like to thank a lot of people working on this project, DIREFTI for funding the RPA, A&M and NSWAT for funding the DNA isolation procedures, and everyone who participates, and you for listening, of course.
Thank you for that brilliant presentation. So I think you can take a few questions, isn't it? Okay. So, members, any questions for Wendy? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Wendy, for the presentation. So I would like just to have one clarification about the Zymo kit. What is the principle? Is the same that QIAGEN or something is different with the Zymo kit?
In the Zymo kit, it's also a column-based purification, but it starts with bashing beats. So the lysis always starts with beat beating.
Hello.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah. Thanks for your presentation. Good work done. My question is, what do you think might be accounting for the non-amplification you are seeing with the extraction case from biomim? Because what we know with RPA is we know it to be quite resistant to inhibitors, even compared to PCR. So what do you think might be going on there?
Yeah, it might it might have to do with the use of recombinase, the reaction in the RPA itself. That's also why I want to test this with qPCR too, because it did work very well with normal PCR. But with the recombinase reaction, you use different types of reagents. Your primer needs to bind to the enzymes. So maybe there's something in the kit which inhibits that part. I don't know, because I don't know exactly what's in the kit, of course. But I was surprised. I didn't expect this, actually. But we also saw differences with the Zymo, with the Swift kit. So there is something different in the RPA than compared to classical PCR, and probably also compared to qPCR. So that's why I really want to test the qPCR too, to see what causes this. Yeah.
I think you can do a normal qPCR as well. You don't have to do a biomeme qPCR for the biomeme extracted DNA. So you can do a normal qPCR. And I was also wondering that I think the quality of the DNA should also be determined after extraction.
Yes, we did that, but with the Swift, you cannot do that reliably. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I encourage the labs to do at least one round of sequencing after you amplify with any of these targets, because given the internal capacity to do sequencing, I think it's good to take those amplicons and do one round of sequencing just to make sure we're amplifying the right stuff. Yeah.
Any further questions? Any hands up? Thank you very much. So we'll move on with the general discussions with Dr. Estelle Marion. Are you ready for us? You are, okay.
Sarah, can you help me? um, it's quite hard to generate a general discussions after just the full presentation of what was performed on this additional skin entities. And the next steps will depend on largely on the funders. So I don't know how to deal with these general discussions.
Okay, so I would like, sorry, you can carry. Okay, I would like first to thank all the presenters, as Professor Richard Phillips said, Dr. Moreno accept to work with us, to buy all the reagents and try to do evaluation. So I would like to thank Michael, who also worked with us to try to compare and standardize, and also Estelle. So this is the first step. And as Michael says, we need to standardize, but we know that we cannot standardize all. But we need really to see what we can harmonize in order to reduce the number of reagents we are using, and also to integrate in the same platform. So for me, the next step is to continue our evaluation. So I think for BU, there is no problem. We see that we have the same result than generalized, even if Swift is easier, but since it is more expensive, I think we will not be able to shift to expedite, even if the lab, the product, the manufacturer can reduce the price. So for yours, we have a promised result. We have to do two next steps. Try to do extraction based on dry swab, and also to extend to another lab, depending on the financial support, to see if in another lab, in another country, they will finding the same result that what we have in our lab. I think this is also, we have to discuss also on with the leprosy team. Those who are working, we have many other experts, and we have a strong group on leprosy, or already working on leprosy, but I think the lab part is not really strong. There are guidelines with no harmonization. So we are coming in this with the proposition of harmonization in a group already working on leprosy with more experience than us on leprosy. But I think there is a need to harmonize, to discuss with them what how to move on. Since now we have also to look on a resistance aspect. And in the WHO guidelines, there is no harmonization, there is no clear procedure. There is a list of methods we can use for that. And what we see on leishmaniasis is that this is a different pathogen, as well as mycetoma, there are different pathogens. But I think with the word we start, that push the different lab to try to see if there is another way to do things. I think that is a positive thing to try to see if we can change or not, and we decide. So I would like also to hear from you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. My thinking was that, like Kingsley said, I think we will need to simplify things, put it in a table, tabular form for each disease, what sample it's the option that can be taken for each disease, what's the DNA extraction procedure, the ones that are resolved, we put it in, the ones that are not resolved, we put it in that to be either this or that, and what needs to be done, and then the amplification, um, what makes it working for BU and the other ones, and which ones need, so that it gives us a big pictorial view of a summary table of where we are, and then it's easy for people to be creative in thinking about how to make things. For example, with the leprosy, we need to think about what samples are being taken, at what level, if at the primary healthcare level, what sample can be taken, and the district level, and at the tertiary facility, what can be taken. So we need to clearly put all those nicely in a table for the network that we can see, and then juggle which ones can be harmonized, which ones cannot be, and maybe to be easy. So like that, taking that approach, Sarah.
We can start to put on the table. I sent. Could you draw? Okay, Isra.
I would like to make a comment perhaps on this thing of sustainability that we have discussed many times. I know that we are focused on skin entities, and we believe this is important, but I think there are opportunities to leverage if we not include other diseases, but we try to work a little bit with other diseases. For example, if in the end we want countries to fund these activities and not a donor, which may have a different opinion in a few years, no? I believe that in countries like, for example, Sudan, where they have mycetoma, where they have CL, maybe the country will be more interested in supporting this type of diagnosis if you also include visceral leishmaniasis or post-Galasar dermal leishmaniasis. And these are diseases that can be diagnosed very easily with the same PCR you are using for cutaneous leishmaniasis. If we are thinking, as in the BU-LABNET, many of the partners are also involved in the BioMeme project, for example, if we are thinking about using platforms which can be common across the countries, we can also think about panels that could be used with these platforms and make them more attractive to the governments. For example, BioMeme has panels for sexually transmitted infections, has panels for respiratory infections, and maybe if we try to collaborate with other groups and working on those diseases, we can make a better case for the governments to adopt or to support this kind of technologies. So I understand that we should focus on skin entities because it's our work, but maybe try to find opportunities to make this more sustainable. And this will be maybe including other diseases, including other people at some point, not to work with the same platforms.
Okay. Okay, Priya.
Sorry, some online participants were asking about the working groups, if they can join the working groups. And maybe because we are separating into different rooms, we won't be able to include the online participants in the working groups. However, we come back at 4:05, and there will be discussions about what were discussed in the working groups, to which the online participants will be communicated for, just to put that here. Sorry? Online questions about joining the working groups, which on the agenda. Oh. Yeah.
Any further comments on, I mean, for general discussions and next steps? Oh, okay, Michael and then Kingsley. So.
Yes, just echoing what Estelle said, that a lot of it does come down to the willingness of the people that currently fund, and probably not everyone is in the situation to be as kind as Javier and just absorb the cost of all of the harmonization work. So I think developing a work plan for each disease about what are the things that have been achieved, what are the unanswered questions, where can those questions be answered with existing sample banks, where do they need new sample banks to be developed to do the harmonization work, because there's obviously a huge cost differential between, say, having some already extracted DNA and running it with 3 different master mixes than there is with actively having to go and get new samples that haven't yet been extracted in order to really trial that. So I think if we're sort of serious about this, we need to go down each disease. Which bits have we ticked off? Okay, we've ticked off for yours, the master mix doesn't matter, but the extraction does matter. That needs proactive sample collection. And developing effectively a business case that we can take to some of the people that are in the room or to people that are not in the room and say, this is the additional budget that is needed beyond simply the maintenance of the LabNet group for the next year to accomplish these specific tasks. And, our deliverables will be at the end of it, this, and this. So I think we need to be concrete about what is needed for each task, and we can try and get that at the end of this. What is the cost of delivering that? What of that cost can be absorbed into partner institutions? What can be absorbed within the existing LabNet budget? But what would be an additional ask? And we shouldn't kid ourselves that we can do all of this with no money. This is prospective sample collection is expensive, and so we need to budget accordingly. Otherwise, we'll come back next year and we'll still have a whole bunch of gaps because we won't have brought money to the table to actually answer the questions.
So
Okay.
I would like also to say that as a lab group of experts, we can continue to develop the procedure, because sometimes there are people who like to implement some procedure even for research or other things, and this procedure is not available. They have to go through and try to see what is going. So I think there could be 2 steps. Like Michael is saying, to see, for example, for yours, what is the need, what we need to do again to say that, okay, we have validated something for leprosy and so on. So we can move and standardize or harmonize things and see now how to implement this procedure is another step also. I think we have 2 steps, validation of a procedure working well in the lab and in another lab, and also how we will go to implement it in the LabNet, through the LabNet.
Okay, any further? So Estelle, did you want to say something? Or Kingsley, I think your hands were up.
Yes, what Michael said, from that angle to allow us to know where we are and what needs to be done. So this should be, I think, part of also the working group this afternoon. Looking into each of the diseases and how we can move. There's also we should have tables for different levels of the health system. What kind of samples can be collected at what level, so that I don't want to see people cutting patients' earlobes off because they have to do some things on the field. So if it's a skill that requires specialist attention, we have to note that and also to distinguish sample collection for routine diagnosis and sample collection for special circumstances, because I see leprosy is not routine. It's only in some specific cases that samples have to be taken for PCR resistant testing. I think we have to make this very clear. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, based on the discussions that are going on, Sarah said I should communicate this in English. So I asked her to say, I think she was supposed to say it in French. She said, Richard, say it in English. Okay. So I'm doing it. The suggestion is to, like Kingsley, Michael, and others are saying, to know where we are. So we need to have a clear table. I mean, what samples are we taking, what needs to be done for each disease, and then that can be shown to us as a network. Then we have a look at it and ask questions so that we know clearly where we are and then what we are supposed to be doing in the next year and how we achieve that. That has to be done by a small core group, and then we display it to the whole group, and then all of us will look into it and see what to contribute to it. So the suggestion is for the presenters, those who led the key harmonization presentations, to think through this and come up with it and then present it to the group this afternoon, the LABNet group. So mainly Dr. Sages and Michael Marks, Estelle, Dr. Javier Moreno, and then Dr. Wendy can contribute to that, come up nicely with a suggestion and proposal. Any other person who volunteers to be part of this can join, so that we can have a nice plan for the BU lab, and then we can discuss it so that it makes things go faster. So that's the suggestion on the floor, unless anyone has a different opinion on that. Is there any different opinion on that, or do you all agree that that's a good plan for us to use? Do you agree? Okay, okay, thank you very much. So I think we'll task, maybe Estelle will lead the group in that, yes, so you lead. I've seen that you're already creating something on your desktop, so it will make things easy for the group. So I think you will meet up and then come up, finalize a beautiful plan for us, and then we can discuss. Kingsley?
The clinicians should participate also to guide the sample collection at what level. I think if any of them can be present, and as well as the Ghana program managers, because eventually it comes to program implementation of that. What will be the challenges in each of the procedures?
So we are fortunate to have the program managers here. They know what happens on the ground. They can put the program perspective also on what has been put in the table. It will make us be able to sell our idea better. So, Benedict, Dr. Kunama Kote, we are both here, and all the others. So on that note, I think we will close that little session so that then the group can come up with this for the afternoon session. Thank you very much for volunteering to do this, even though subtly we asked you to do it. Thank you very much for agreeing. So on the next session, Dr. Kingsley Asiedu is going to give an introductory talk on moving from BU-LABNet to skin NTDs. And this is what's going to happen before lunch. So it's going to give us food for thought for lunch. So
I think after that,
y- that's it.
okay,
Yeah.
we will, before lunch, what is lunch?
That's lunch.
Lunch, okay.
Yeah.
Before lunch, we will also introduce working group. So that the working
Okay, so I'm being told by Sarah that after Kingsley, there's going to be an introduction of the working groups before we exit the room, and that is true. That has to happen. So, thank you very much for that.
Everything that I was planning to say, we have already discussed them. So, okay. So, nothing new. I will just repeat a few points and pointer. Okay. Don't worry. Okay, all right. So, yeah, I'm going to say a few things, what I call our vision. Vision may not happen today or yesterday, but it's a long-term aspiration that one day we should also transit from BU-LABNet to what I call Skin NTD LABNet for Africa. The reason being on the basis of these two documents that you are all familiar with. One is the NTD roadmap that emphasizes integration, and second is about the Skin NTD framework, for which we are discussing all about about integration and different diseases. In terms of the NTDs, I've highlighted a few that may not immediately or necessarily have to be included because of the nature of their diagnosis. But if anything happens with research and development in these areas that require that we integrate any aspects of their diagnostics, we'll do so. But otherwise, as Sarah presented, the focus will be on yours, leprosy, Buruli ulcer, dermal leishmaniasis, and mycetoma for now. Again, as I presented yesterday, the different diseases in different regions will determine also the integration into the platform in different countries. So we'll take this into account moving forward, particularly what we call the co-endemicity within countries and within across countries. So currently, this is what we have. Some of the work that we have heard presented, the YOS work, the Buruli work, the leprosy, CL, mycetoma, also with the support of our collaborating laboratories present here, with all this harmonization and standardization of procedures. But in the future, I think what we should all look at is that each of these disease-specific will form what I call a satellite links, because we don't expect that Pasteur will be able to deal with all diseases, and it will not be necessary also, because each disease-specific areas have their expertise. And working together with Pasteur under the same framework, they can also standardize the procedures according to what we are discussing now. So this is just my rough idea that we'll have satellites, so that also implies that we'll be taking other laboratories on board. This meeting, I think we have some other disease-specific groups present, and the intent is that some of these laboratories in Africa dealing with some of the diseases we are targeting will be brought on based on the advice of their disease-specific constituency, saying that this laboratory in Ethiopia or in Tanzania for this disease A or B is up to a level that we think they can play a greater role, and their involvement in the network will be useful. So that information should come from disease-specific group. But as I mentioned, in order not to overwhelm the whole network, we will concentrate our membership to more national reference laboratories and research laboratories that can support other labs within countries. I mean, from experience and from what we have seen, also because of less government commitment to many things, the academic institutions or research institutions have been able to use research grants to provide support to laboratory testing for national programs, whether it's direct or indirect, but eventually some results get provided as a result of the resources that the labs have. So I hope that whilst we bring in other labs on board, we also take into account the expertise and their capabilities, and also ability to secure and raise funds. So how do we move forward? One is that, as I've mentioned, disease-specific labs through the disease-specific networks within Africa will help us with that effort. Two, that each lab will become what I call satellite independent lab, meaning that they can operate and establish the EQA system among themselves in a particular disease, and then everything is linked up through the coordinating center. We will not have all the expertise here, as we have already heard from, but those expertise in the disease-specific groups will be tapped and to help us with the integrated platform, as well as donors who may be interested also in supporting disease-specific actions or efforts to develop, to standardize the testing, and those who are interested in supporting the coordinating platform, as we have some of them present here. And then finally, once everything is set, to publish these protocols so that everyone everywhere can have access to them. So this is the organogram that the BU-LABNet has. Whether any expansion will have implications beyond the current staff, we will have to see how we will handle that. Finally, I would like to emphasize again the importance of the cooperation and collaboration between the laboratories and the national programs. And as I said yesterday, and I repeat today, the role of the lab is to confirm cases and to provide results. The labs and the national programs will carry out all the public health activities and help in the collection and transportation of specimens to the lab. When it comes to field activities, yes, we can all be there. The labs can be there to train the health workers on how to collect the sample, how to store, how to transport, etc. And I think this will be a collaborative effort, because I cannot train the lab team on the ground, but how to collect the type of storage they should do. I think we should leave that one to those who are specialized in that. This will also ensure that they receive the samples in the way that they need to, in order to be able to analyze, process, and analyze them. So let us remember this just as we meet this afternoon to reflect on other things. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Kingsley, for that vision, big vision. We hope to realize that in the very, very near future. Yeah, thank you very much. And I don't know if there are any quick comments from the floor. Otherwise, I'll call Numfo. Is he there? Oh, Sarah. Okay, Sarah is going to educate us on how to be obedient this afternoon. Yes, so Sarah, I think I'll give the floor to you.
I hope you already filled the form from your group. Numfo share the Google form to see in which group you would like to participate. I think Richard will come to let us know where the other group. There's a room downstairs. 2 groups are remaining here. There's a main group. The one group I see that the operationalization have many people, so we can stay here, and the other 2 groups downstairs. Okay. Yeah. So we have 2 groups, group 2 and group 3 downstairs, and group 1 here, since there are many people chose group 1. So during this discussion, we really expect participants to feel free and really share the ideas. So we are at the turn, and really we need your idea to continue the journey of realizing the vision of the network. So every idea is really welcome. We will discuss and see how we can integrate all the idea. So for the group, the working group, as Numfor shared the theory, I will come through this theory because the working group are expected to discuss and develop a kind of clear roadmap of activities so that we can ease the transition from BU-LABNET to Skin LABNET. So we have 3 groups. Okay. Okay, we say at the end. So the group. Okay. So each working group will appoint a member to lead discussion and to present the outcome of the bigger team at the plenary meeting session. So the group discussion is supposed to happen at the same time, so you will be assigned only in one group. So, but the disease to be integrated first will be yours, cutaneous leishmaniasis and leprosy, but since Wendy also discussed on, present already on mycetoma, I think we'll start to also integrate mycetoma. So the working group will use some reference document and discussion and all the PowerPoint and discussion we had so that they can use it for the discussion. So the group 1 is on operationalization of the new network. How do you see this network? How the new network will be organized according to what Kingsley already said? So you will look at the coordinating center, the satellite center he presents, what is the official membership, how to integrate new members, how will this be done? To talk about supervision, organization, data collection, the structure of the advisory board, any other idea not mentioned here are all welcome. So we have the group 1 here in this room. The group 2 will be downstairs to discuss. If we have to go to skin entities, we have also to think about external quality assessment for these different diseases. How will this UKA be organized and implemented? At the central level, so we have, I don't know, Michael, you are in the group 2? AQA? Probably, okay. So we have a good example of what we did for yours using plasmid, and I think we can easily standardize AQA for different diseases using plasmid, and it's not really expensive, and it could be easily to develop. Even if you did not have expertise on the disease, you are able to develop all the panel using plasmid. So we will discuss on that because it's also stable. You can send it easily, ship it easily. Sorry? Okay, you have expertise with plasmid. So that is something we can easily implement. Okay, what is the cost? As though that with plasmid, we can reduce cost too. So any other idea on AQA is also welcome this group. This group will be downstairs. The third group is on visibility. Since it's the smallest one, we can also stay in this room. So the third group will also stay in this group. So to look how we can make all these activities more visible, for logo, for website, information update, social media handle update, presence at other large meetings to make things more visible. So that will be the third group. And any other idea about visibility, communication is welcome. So for each of the group, during the presentation, the expected outcome is to clearly state what they are proposing, how action could be implemented, who will be responsible, for example, to take this action, if it's possible for some action, if they can have an idea of the cost, any other important information is also welcome. So that is the three group. If you need more clarification, Kingsley, not Kingsley, Numfor, each of you knows the group, or he has to show what you choose? Could you show what they chose, or I read the name?
45 persons who have registered. It might be difficult to call the names, or maybe I can share on the platform if possible. Okay. Okay, all right. I will do that in the next 2 minutes, please.
All right. Okay, is there any question, please? Do we all understand what is expected of us, or are we lost? Do we have any questions, please? So group 1 will be here, group 2 will be downstairs, group 3 will be here, I suppose.
Yeah,
Group 3 will also be here. And
those who have not registered, do you want to register now?
Yes.
Or you will just go register?
join.
Okay, join one team, but those who have registered and do not remember, you can see.
All right, so like Sarah is saying, if there may be people here who did not register, but everyone will have to be in a group because we need everybody's ideas. So either you are going to the implementation of the new network group, or you are going to the external quality assurance for different diseases group, or you are going to the visibility group. So please decide now, and then you head towards one of those groups, and so that we all provide our contribution to the network.
We create another small group. We supposed to work on the action plan for diseases.
Yeah.
Which one? So Dr. Benedict and the other clinician, please, you will join Estelle, Michael, Dr. Barogi. Those who are working have more expertise on the field for sample collection will join us to discuss. Yeah, to discuss on that. And this group,
That's a small group.
yeah, can.
So that is a small group. So if
Yeah.
you want to even meet under the trees, I think it's possible. Yes, because it's a very small group. So I can count the numbers. So
Yeah.
find somewhere to squeeze yourself. Otherwise, yeah, sorry, Dorothy. There's a kitchenette downstairs. Aha. Okay, so that's where the small group will end up. And then yes, so wonderful. Thank you. So we are all clear, and we are just winding up for lunch. We are winding up for lunch.
Michael will stay in the group on AQA. You will not. We will manage for. Yeah, I prefer you in the AQA group.
Okay, so So just to emphasize again before we leave the room, each group has to designate a chair or a lead. So once you go into the group, the first thing, look around at the faces, designate a chair or a lead who will sort of help to articulate everything after. Maybe you can have a secretary, somebody who writes the points down, but then after we'll debrief and come and do our presentation. So someone, ask someone to do that on behalf of the group. You may have a few slides or something like that to articulate your point. But I'm hoping that we have a wonderful discussion. It's going to be a 1.5 hour discussion, and we are going to go at 1:30. We are going to, do we come here before we go? Because otherwise it's into the groups, because it's right after lunch.
Yeah, you go directly to your group.
Right, it's okay, because it could be a bit of disorganization. Okay, so right after lunch, you are going straight into your group, meaning at 1:30, is there going to be a bell? Because I'm a teacher, so I tend to know what time is about. That's why I'm asking. So at 1:30, let's all disappear from the dining area into our groups. That's what I'm trying to say, so that then things can move smoothly. Thank you very much.